Hello and welcome to the Heaven Bound Sunday School class of the First General Baptist Church in Truman. We're going to read out of the book of Acts, an incident involving Philip the evangelist and an Ethiopian official he met out on the roadway. Now, there was a Philip that was one of the apostles. This is a different Philip. He was one of the leaders in the early church, and he began in the church ministry by helping to feed the needy. Then he began to preach the gospel. As a matter of fact, he was one of the first to preach to the Samaritans. And while in Samaria, an angel of the Lord spoke to him and told him where to go. And we'll just read the scripture and tell the story. Acts 8, starting in verse 26. It says, "And the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, Arise and go toward the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert. And he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, a eunuch of great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had the charge of all her treasure, and had come to Jerusalem for to worship, was returning and sitting in his chariot, reading Isaiah the prophet. Then the Spirit said unto Philip, Go near and join thyself to this chariot. And Philip ran thither to him, and heard him read the prophet Isaiah, and said, Understandest thou what thou readest? And he said, How can I, except some man should guide me? And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him. The place of the scripture which he read was this: He was led as a sheep to the slaughter, and like a lamb dumb before his shearer, so opened he not his mouth. In his humiliation his judgment was taken away, and who shall declare his generation? For his life is taken from the earth. And the eunuch answered Philip and said, I pray thee, of whom speaketh the prophet this? Of himself or of some other man? Then Philip opened his mouth and began at the same scripture, and preached unto him Jesus. And as they went on their way, they came unto a certain water, and the eunuch said, See, here is water. What doth hinder me to be baptized? And Philip said, If thou believest with all thine heart, thou mayest. And he answered and said, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And he commanded the chariot to stand still, and they went down both into the water, both Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized him. And when they were come up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord caught away Philip, that the eunuch saw him no more. And he went on his way rejoicing. But Philip was found at Azotus. And passing through, he preached in all the cities till he came to Caesarea. Now the angel came to Philip as he was, as I said previously, in Samaria, and told him to go south to a desert place. And being obedient, Philip did that, arose and went immediately. And on the way, he was going to encounter a man of Ethiopia. We know quite a bit about this man. One thing we don't know is his name. But he was in a chariot. He was from Ethiopia, which is a country south of Egypt in Africa. We know that he was a eunuch. He had great authority under the Ethiopian queen, so much authority that he was actually in charge of all her treasure and all the money of Ethiopia. He had gone to Jerusalem to worship. He was now returning, riding in a chariot, what we would probably today call a carriage or a wagon. And as he went, he was reading from the book of Isaiah, the prophet. Now, literacy was rare in that part of the country, and the fact that he could read just reestablishes the fact that he was a prominent person there in Ethiopia. It also tells us he had great influence and great wealth because he was able to purchase a copy of Isaiah. But Philip, being instructed by the Spirit to go near the chariot, and that's exactly what Philip did. And as he neared the chariot, he could hear the Ethiopian reading, and he was reading aloud, and that was common at that time. That's normally how people spoke. And Philip asked him, "Do you understand?" And it's not really an unfair question. Reading is one thing. Comprehending what you read is a completely different situation. The man seemed to read very well, but Philip's concern was, do you understand what you're reading? And the Ethiopian's response was, no, I need someone to explain it to me. I need someone to guide me as I read it. Now, the Ethiopian demonstrates his interest in spiritual development with his honest answer to Philip's question. He needs a coach or a mentor to understand what's been written. Philip is invited to sit with this man who is seeking faith. This allows a personal, detailed conversation between the two of them. Now, as I read that part of Isaiah, the Ethiopian asked Philip, who is the prophet speaking about? Now, this question allows Philip an opening to explore the gospel. Is the prophet speaking about himself, or is he talking about someone else? So with that opening, Philip began to preach about Jesus. An opportunity was presented to Philip, and he grabbed it and began to preach. Now, as they traveled along, the eunuch, he was listening very intently to what Philip had to say. And as they came to a bit of water, the eunuch asked Philip, why can't I be baptized? The scripture clearly says, and Philip said, if thou believest with all thine heart, thou mayest. And he answered and said, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. So Philip and the eunuch got out of the chariot. They went down to the water, and Philip baptized the eunuch. Now, the scripture tells us that the Spirit of the Lord took Philip away right after the baptism. Now, the eunuch continued on his trip. One word explains or tells us what he was doing as he continued his trip: rejoicing. Now, God presented Philip a chance to witness to someone, presented him a chance to preach to someone, and Philip did. He witnessed, he preached, the eunuch responded, he was baptized, as did Philip. May we follow the Spirit of the Lord.